Shabbat Shalom. In the summer of 1999, my life changed forever one night, and I can remember it vividly. My family ordered Little Caesar's pizza. We picked up my brother's best friend, and we drove to the Killeen City Cinema, which has since burned down. We waited outside in the Texas heat for over an hour before we were finally let in to the midnight premiere of Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. Da, 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 da. Now, some of you older folks, I can feel you rolling your eyes at me right now. The Star Wars prequels, Jonathan, really? Blech, you might say. Then you might say, Jonathan, we had the original Star Wars of the 70s and 80s. We had Luke Skywalker. We had James Earl Jones as Darth Vader. We had Harrison Ford. We had Princess Leia. Yada, yada, yada. Look, I get it. Your Star Wars was obviously better than mine. But my Star Wars is unique and special to me because I saw it at a time when I was young and impressionable. And while I had seen your Star Wars on these grainy VHS tapes before 1999, you have to understand it's a whole different experience to see something on the big screen with a bucket full of popcorn and a room full of nerds just screaming at the top of their lungs. I can remember almost every scene of that film, and it ends with a really awesome lightsaber duel between a villain named Darth Maul, a Jedi named Qui-Gon Jinn, and a younger version of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, you older folks might remember Obi-Wan Kenobi. These are not the droids you're looking for. Originally, he was played by another actor, Sir Alec Guinness. But that is not my Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm so sorry. My Obi-Wan Kenobi is played by an actor named Ewan McGregor, who has by now played the character in more films, TV shows, video games, and cartoons than his predecessor ever did. My wife wanted me to note that he is also in Moulin Rouge, and you should watch that. Okay. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Well, in 2014, my friend, Rabbi Natasha Mann, she's a rabbi in London now. You might remember she actually came and spoke. We were sitting in class in rabbinical school in Los Angeles. Probably we should have been doing something else, more important. And she casually mentions to me, like it's not important at all, like it's not the biggest news in the galaxy, she mentions to me that she is bat mitzvah tutoring both of Ewan McGregor's daughters, both of whom were 13 at the time. And when she said that, I lost my mind. Because you can't just casually tell me that you're hanging out at Obi-Wan Kenobi's house after school. You can't say that to me and expect me not to freak out. She was at Obi-Wan Kenobi's house for days. She heard him sing. She saw him make breakfast. I didn't know what to do with this. Apparently, she got this gig because she's from the UK, and a rabbi in London made the shidduch between her and this incredibly famous movie star. And although Ewan McGregor isn't Jewish himself, his then wife was, and so were their two girls, hence the double bat mitzvah, the banot mitzvah. Now, friends, you should know that for months, I tried everything I could to get access to Obi-Wan Kenobi through Natasha. But his Jedi powers were too strong for me. I could never seem to be able to get to him. Now, Natasha didn't have a car, and she couldn't drive anyway, so I volunteered to drive her to Santa Monica, where I could only look at the outside of his enormous castle of a house. But he had a security team, and they would never let me get out of my car. I was not on the list. They wouldn't even let me get a small glimpse of him. Now, one time, because I'm an idiot, I did the Jedi wave thing to them. I was like, you will let me go inside. They were not impressed. In fact, they brought out this huge man on his security team who told me in no uncertain terms that he would in fact, quote, break me in half if I stepped any further. So I stayed in my car. Then a couple weeks later, Natasha came to class one morning and she told me that she had a plan for me to finally meet my hero. She told me that one of Ewan McGregor's daughters, Jamyan, was actually adopted from Mongolia. And although she was raised Jewish, in order for her to have a bat mitzvah, the rabbi said she needed to officially convert with a beit din and then immerse in the mikveh on campus at our school. And while Jamyan would theoretically be in the mikveh with her mom, her sister Esther and her dad, Obi-Wan Kenobi, would just be sitting outside the mikveh, twiddling their thumbs with nothing to do. And wouldn't it be nice if there was a lovely Texan student to show them around the campus while they wait? I've got a golden ticket. I didn't know what to do. I was going to meet a Jedi Master. I was freaking out for weeks leading up to this event. Both Natasha and my lovely wife had to coach me on what to say and what not to say if I did in fact meet Ewan McGregor, because they knew I'm such a nerd that I was going to really embarrass myself. I counted down the days. The day of the mikveh finally came. I walked down to campus and I saw Natasha talking to a group of women, and I met Ewan McGregor's then Jewish French wife. Afterwards, I met his mother-in-law, and then I met his two daughters, Jamyan from Mongolia, and Esther, who is his biological daughter with his Jewish French wife. But somebody was noticeably absent from this little party. Where was Obi-Wan Kenobi? I tried very politely to ask without sounding desperate. I said, Where is Ewan at? Oh, he's currently shooting a movie at the Warner Brothers lot, but he should arrive later. I was crushed. But then everyone in this party, except for Esther, his biological daughter, who looked just like him, by the way, they all went into the mikveh room and they left me with her, and I was tasked with showing a 13-year-old girl around campus while her famous father, who's Obi-Wan Kenobi, was nowhere to be found. In Parshat Tetzaveh, someone important is likewise missing from this parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, according to the sages, this is the only parsha where Moses does not appear from the book of Shemot on. Instead, his brother Aaron is the featured character here. We learn all about what Aaron is supposed to wear in his role as the high priest. We hear about the breastplate, the Urim and the Tumim, the breeches, the apron, the headband. But Moses, our leader, our prophet, our connection to God, is likewise noticeably absent in this parsha. The rabbis are puzzled by this. They're borderline obsessed with this idea. Moses absent in a parsha? Now keep in mind, from the beginning of the book of Exodus, he's been in every parsha, every episode thus far, and the only reason he's not in the book of Genesis is because he hadn't been born yet. That's when the rabbis suggest that the reason Moshe does not appear in this parsha is because he, in fact, told God to erase his name from the Torah. What? You might be thinking to yourself, wait, when did that happen? Well, in about 6 chapters from our parsha this morning, we will read in the book of Exodus about the account of the Israelites building that little thing called the golden calf. And God is so upset with the Jewish people, he's considering just wiping them off the map. But Moses speaks up and tells God, quote, You will forgive their sin, but if you do not, erase me from the book which you have written. And according to a midrash from the sages, when Moses declared this, God took him up on his offer and said, quote, I will be lenient with you, Moshe. I will erase you, but only from one book that I wrote, Parshat Tetzaveh. So there you have it. Moses is not in Parshat Tetzaveh, but according to the rabbis, he didn't want to be there anyway, and neither did God. But what's interesting is although Moses isn't technically in this parsha, so much of his essence, his ideology, and his family are. So much so that one oftentimes forgets or doesn't even notice his absence. Likewise, when I hung out with Ewan McGregor's daughter for half an hour, so much of him existed in her. I noticed all of his mannerisms, his accent, his facial expressions through her. That while it was obviously not him who I was interacting with, in some bizarre, strange way, it kind of was. And this, my friends, is how we're supposed to feel about God. While we don't have direct access to God, i.e., we can't just sit on his couch in heaven and play video games together, when we interact with other people, we get a hint of God's essence through them. Because every person is made B'Tselem Elohim, in God's image. And that is the reason we're told over and over to treat other human beings with dignity and respect, because they are, in fact, a part of God. All right, back to my story. I have bad news. Obi-Wan Kenobi never showed up. Apparently, he had better things to do that day than to support his daughter during her conversion, and that's probably why I wasn't so surprised when I found out that his wife divorced him in 2020 after he had a very, very public affair, but that's neither here nor there. But you know what, friends? A couple years ago, Disney Plus premiered a new show simply called Obi-Wan Kenobi, and while I was watching it, I noticed a familiar face appeared on the screen. It was Esther McGregor, his daughter, that same girl I showed around campus that day. And now she was all grown up and appearing in her father's TV show as a minor character. And I did some research. It turns out that she is now also a Hollywood actress. And I have to say, that brought me some closure to the whole situation. It turns out that I may not have gotten to hang out with Obi-Wan Kenobi that day, but I still got to meet a Hollywood actress. She might not have been the star that I was looking for, but the force was still strong with her. Shabbat Shalom. Friends, we'll